All right, team. Russ and Ian from Team CC Gym. So we've been asked a lot by our members and other people that we generally get in touch with about Game Changers, the vegan documentary, okay? So it's a big deal. There's lots going on. There's lots to think about with it. And we figured we'd just put together, hopefully, a succinct, reasonably engaging, not too boring, very quick 5-10 minute review of what we think on it from the experience of dealing with people for 10 years in our gyms. We coached well over thousands of people in that time. So what are our thoughts based on that? So we're not against veganism. Like, we both understand the moral implications of it, lots of different health implications, but we are going to try and come at it from a reality point of view. What is realistic to do for a normal person who's considering just the main health points and making progress. What that means to us is being strong, fit, healthy, and in a body composition that they are happy with, that they feel good about. Agreed?
Sure. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Ian has been putting a lot of work into this, so I'm going to let him lead with the bits that were good about it, that are worth, trying to incorporate maybe.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that we cover all bases. So the things that were good, the things that were bad, and then any additional context that might help. So starting off with the good stuff. The main good thing that I took out of the documentary is that it just does present that being plant-based is a viable way of eating. Like, you can do it and you can achieve 99.9% of your goals as long as you're focused, you're committed to that process, you execute it well, you're consistent. And what this does is, say you've got somebody who maybe has an ethical question in their mind in terms of treatment of animals and all that sort of stuff, but they also find their performance, maybe body composition, those sort of things, they're really important to them as well. So they're maybe not pursuing their ethical reasoning because they're afraid of losing their performance. So for people like that, a documentary like this can actually help them remove that fear of losing their performance, drastic changes in their body composition, because it does present that it is possible, and there are high level athletes out there who are following plant-based diets. We've got plant-based members who are doing really, really well, and have had really great strength results and body composition results. So it is a perfectly viable way of eating. It's kind of the first good point that I came to.
Nice, yeah. So your ethics no longer have to get in the way of your performance, which is a big deal. The nutrition industry has moved forwards to a point whereby you can eat varied spread of foods. You can get all the nutritional requirements through a vegan diet. Legit. Good point. Any other good points?
After that, Joyce was getting a little bit, not thin on the ground, but a bit superficial. So the other benefits that I've got down from it is that it just highlights the importance of fruit and veg, but I don't think that's anything that most people are struggling with the concept. Like, most people understand that they should be eating plenty of fruit and veg and plant-based foods. They should be preparing most of their meals at home, not relying on takeaway food. So that's something that it does highlight throughout. But again, I think that's something that we didn't need a documentary to learn. That is something that, if we're honest with ourselves, we all knew that we needed to do that. Already, it's not exciting particularly.
No, eating your sort of 5 to 10 fruit and veg a day is obviously easier when you only eating fruit and veg, and it just highlights the importance of doing that and a few different ways that can help you. Yeah. So, moving on to the things that are worth considering and that we found are a problem is, well, one, let's say that the documentary in general was an unashamedly biased, one-sided review of veganism. Now, again, that's not like throwing slander. That, as far as I can see, is the truth. At no point in the show that I watched it on Saturday night, did they say this is the presentation of positive facts or theories for veganism versus the positive presentation of a full carnivore diet or just eating animal-based products. They only ever presented the one-sided argument, which basically means that pro-vegan, pro-carnivore, they basically just stacked up a load of arguments for veganism without considering stacking up the carnivorous ones, which leaves the viewer at the end only aware of the positive vegan arguments and therefore incredibly biased towards that point of view. So that's like a headline thing to start with, is be very careful when someone only ever presents one side of an argument, because usually that means they have a strong agenda to promote, and they are unashamedly doing that.
Yeah, and they even went as far as to recognise that there is research out there that is pro consuming meat and dairy, but say we're not going to use those bits of information because that was clearly funded by the meat industry and the dairy industry, and then they proceed to go and use studies funded by plant-based industry and say that they're totally okay and ethical use, but you can't ethically use those ones over there because they're funded by big meat companies. So they're accepting that there is research out there, but just throwing it out the door for one ethical reason, but then going against that ethical reason by presenting their own evidence, which is pro in one side, and that's just totally unfair. That's just poor science, start to finish, basically.
Yeah. So that's something to be thought of. So, and then in terms of a few like the little specifics of arguments, do we have any concerns about like the different ones that they presented within those?
Yeah, plenty. So one of the main things about the documentary that makes it different to the other Netflix ones that have gone out about nutrition and being plant-based, this one highlighted much more use of that sort of diet in an athletic population. So people who've kind of gone plant-based whilst being at the elite level of their sport. But what they do in the documentary is they kind of focus on people who've done it later in their career, and they have no kind of background on what they were eating before, and then the ones that do. So when they do say that, like with the American football players in particular, they're going in and they're doing experiments where they're eating a meat-filled burrito and then a plant-based burrito, checking their blood work afterwards. For all the information that we get out of that is that the people who were eating meat before were eating really poor quality meats. They're eating takeaway, fried chicken, all that sort of stuff. And you compare it to somebody who's got a plant-based diet that just probably includes a lot more vegetables, but a lot higher quality food, regardless of whether it was plant-based or not. So you're comparing lemons and limes. You're not comparing the two same things at the same time. And then the other thing with the athletes is, like I said, the ones who are being used in the documentary, they went vegan generally when they're 27, 28, 29. They're potentially looking to extend their careers. It's probably not the only variable that they have changed. They're changing their training plan, their sleep, all these other things alongside the diet. So they might be feeling the benefits from that. They're all anecdotal benefits. There's very few actual, performance measures that they're taking other than, their performance continuing at the elite level of their sport. So, it is good to see that there are, plant-based elite athletes out there, but for every one plant-based elite athlete, there is probably a lot more, omnivorous elite athletes who are performing as good, better, winning more high-profile events. So it is an argument, but I don't think it's the strongest argument.
Yeah, and we're not saying again that going vegan was bad for those athletes, and they've clearly resonated with it. They're feeling better for it. Amazing, good for them. Carry on. But it brings on to a wider point of like using outliers to create a population-based theory is an incredibly dangerous thing to do. So what I mean by that is, it's all very well, whatever argument's presented, eat meat, don't eat meat, all carbs, no carbs, high volume resistance training, low volume, all power, no power, all fitness and elastic bands and no strength training. Whatever your argument is, you'll always be able to find one person that makes that argument seem legitimate. That person is an outlier because on a statistical basis, they could be the only one that is making it work for them. If you then base your theory based off that one person and then try and apply that to a population, to 100 or 1,000 or 1 billion people, it's extraordinarily dangerous. The whole point of statistical significance, and they did say in the documentary that the little tests they were doing were not statistically significant, so they know that. But applying that to a population is just dangerous because you haven't done it across enough people to fully understand its impact, whether it actually has a true impact or it's just works for that one person, or it's just a fluke, or it's a manifestation of, like we said, of other factors. So you've got to be extremely careful when taking advice about outliers. My mate Jim, does only 1 RMs and he gets fucking swole. Therefore, we should only ever do 1 RMs to get swole. You try telling your 71 kilo dripping wet through 6'5" volleyballer that's what he should be doing, and he'll snap in seconds.
Yeah, sometimes people can be great at something in spite of the other things they're doing, as well as because of the other things they're doing. Is a way of mentioning that. Another downside for me was you get, with a lot of plant-based things, whether it's like a blog post or whatever, you go down the route of comparing humans to other animals, and you don't take into account like the very basic, simple understanding that two animals can operate totally different. And I think if you presented that argument to like a primary school child, a lot of times you stood a human next to a cow and you asked them how different they were, they probably understand that they're massively different. But sometimes when it comes to, you know, a biased thing like that, where they're trying to present one specific argument, they, you know, treat two things that are very different very similar. And the example that we can take from the documentary is comparing humans and things like oxes when the strong man did it, which is obviously very relevant to the sort of people that we work with, people that want to get stronger and all that sort of stuff. And where he says, people always ask me how you can be as strong as an ox when you don't eat meat, and his response to that is always like, well, have you ever seen an ox eat meat? It's like, an ox isn't designed to eat meat, like we are designed to eat meat. And they go to the extents of showing like the length of the digestive tract of a human relative to a lion, saying that it's much longer and that's because of this reason and that reason. But you could do that extra step on the other side and show a human compared to a fully herbivore animal, and it'd be even longer again. So if you showed just that side, it'd look very pro consuming meat, but they only show the side that is very pro consuming, you know, plants only, essentially.
Exactly right. It's things like saying, oh well, you know, cows can get loads of protein. You're really good at extracting nutrients. You know, and actually they did say that cows are not that good, despite what I'm about to say, which is the fact that, you know, the term chewing the cud is a term that comes from cows. You notice cows are chewing all the time, so they eat some grass, chew it for ages to break it down as much as they can, swallow it, partially digest it in their gut, vomit it back up into their mouths, and then chew it a bit longer, and then swallow it again. Now, that's what it takes to get, you know, a large or proportionately large amount of nutrients out of a purely, well, you know, pretty much grass-based diet. Humans gladly don't do that. I don't remember the last time I deliberately vomited food into my mouth to chew it to get extra vitamins and minerals out of it. So just those comparisons, again, are like, they seem really good on TV, and, you know, and they kind of smack you in the face and you go, well, yeah, exactly right. And, you know, a lion's intestine is only 3 loops, whereas a human's is, you know, 9 or 10 or 11 or whatever. Like, but there's so much more to go into it than just that. So comparing it is just dramatic for TV. It's not a fair comparison that you can actually base your long-term diet on, because that's our thing. Like, to wrap this all up, like, our goal at Team CC is to try to cut through all of the kind of one-sided arguments, the pendulum shifts where you go all the way over, only do HIIT training for fitness and fat loss, or all the way back the other way and only do, you know, only strength training because that's all you need to change your body composition, and only eat this and avoid that. Like, we try and cut through that and just find what's the real driving factors of successful change on a population scale, so for hundreds and thousands of people. And swinging all the way over is never the long-term solution. What you'll find, and this always happens, and much cleverer people than me and Ian have said it in the past, that there's a pendulum to information. You hear about a new argument and you swing all the way over, and then at some point someone swings it back all the way over that way, and on a long term it just drops nicely into the middle and says, eat some meat, eat some fruit, eat some veg, do some strength training, do some all-round fitness training, do some exercise that doesn't look like training and is just life, get some good sleep, and just try and be balanced and try and understand what you need as an individual to get that balance. If you eat loads and loads of one thing, you're probably creating a problem, either a deficiency or an excess of something that's going to cause you problems. But swinging back to the middle is probably, unfortunately, the boring but the real way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the overall message with all of this is that, you know, if your ethics are telling you to eat a plant-based diet, then that's absolutely fine. That's your choice. That's your decision making. You can value the things that you value. You know, absolutely go for it. But if you're changing the way that you're thinking about eating, or potentially the way that you are eating, based off solely the information presented in this documentary or other documentaries that have appeared on Netflix, like, we would probably say that you've probably been misled. Like, the information in there isn't being represented the right way. You're not being told the right things. You're not being given the chance to digest that information your own way with confidence of actually coming to the correct conclusion, because you're only, like we said, seeing one side of the argument and, you know, misrepresentation of data that might actually be saying another thing. So if you have changed the way you're thinking based off this documentary, we'd urge you to reconsider and think about it again.
Have a read around. Have a read around, make your own conclusions. Don't just swallow this one. this one being a Game Changers one, or even ours, you know, straight off the bat, do your own research. There you go. Cheers.